Hey, what's up, VC? It's Harmless Rebel, Steve, and it's time for a response to Kim C's contest. This is her 100 subs contest. I can't believe you don't have a lot more than 100 subs there, Kim. I love the channel. You're always showing some pretty killer music, and I look forward to a lot more. So let's go ahead. Let me turn this down a little bit. Kim had a couple questions for her first contest, and they were, what album or albums would you like to see pressed or repressed to vinyl? A favorite or most important record from high school, and coolest colored record in your collection. Actually, before we do that, in the background, this is Reverend Organ Drum. It's a pretty cool album. This is Jim Heath on guitar from Reverend Horton Heat, Tim Alexander on the Hammond guitar, or on the Hammond organ, and Todd Sosby on drums. And it's just a cool rockabilly instrumental album. I'm a big fan of Jim Heath and Reverend Horton Heat. That's what led me to this. And actually, this leads into our very first question. Some albums you would like to see pressed or repressed or an extended press on vinyl. And this is actually one. This came out a few years ago. This was 2008 on Yep Rock Records, and it was only released a CD from what I could find. I've never found any information or seen it on vinyl, and I would really love to have this one on vinyl. It's just a killer album. Some others I'd like to see on vinyl. This is a local Phoenix band that I saw for the first time in a bar before they got big, and I really dug them. It's The Refreshments, Fizzy Fuzzy Big and Buzzy. They were just an upbeat alternative band from the 90s. I don't know how big they were outside of Arizona. They were huge in Arizona, but I was a real big fan of this band. I ended up seeing them a number of times, and then once I got signed, I saw them a few times as well. But I have never. That's another one I've looked for online to try to find any information about that being released. And I mean, this was in the mid '90s, so it doesn't surprise me. This was '96, so it doesn't surprise me that it's not on vinyl. But that's one I would love to see pressed. Some others that I would like to see repressed are the first few Sun Kil Moon albums. Kozik always does these crazy short releases, which is great if you're a collector and you're one of those 100 or 300 people that get a copy of his albums, but most of us aren't. So I would love to see his first few released. Some other ones are from Tool. 10,000 Days was never released on vinyl. There's some bootlegs out there, but I'd like to see an official release of that. Anima hasn't been released since I believe it came out. Again, there's a bunch of bootlegs out there, but even the bootlegs are almost $100 now. So that's all stuff I would like to see released or re-released. And there's a bunch more. I mean, I'm not going to go on forever talking about it. Let's move on to albums that were important to me in high school. These weren't just important to me in high school, they were important in my musical development, and one of them I've talked about before, and this one goes back to the first question too, because this was never released on vinyl either. This is Stone Free, a tribute to Jimi Hendrix. Not only was this my first real introduction to Jimi Hendrix, this is one of the first albums, and I've talked about this before, that made me want to be a musician. These are some of the best, this is one of the best tribute albums I've heard. They didn't just take his songs and play them word for word. Some of them they did. They reworked a lot of them and did some really amazing stuff. And this album turned me into a huge Jimi Hendrix fan. After I got this, I wanted to have copies. I went out and bought copies of all of his CDs right away after that, and just fell in love with him as an artist. But I mean, this had The Cure, Eric Clapton, Buddy Guy, Body Count, Nigel Kennedy, The Pretenders, Slash, and Paul Rodgers. with the Band of Gypsys. MACC, which I've talked about before, that was Mike McCready, Jeff Ament, Chris Cornell, and Matt Cameron. Living Color, I mean, this just beginning to end is just an amazing album. And like I said, after hearing this, it really made me want to play. And I bought my first drum set really shortly after hearing this the first time. Don't ask me why a CD for a guy known as, or considered one of the greatest guitarists of all times, made me want to buy a drum set. It made me want to play music, and the drums was the first thing that I played. I actually bought this from Columbia House. And this is the original that I bought in 90 or 91, whenever it was. No, it had to be 91 because I was a freshman in high school. Was it? Yeah, that was towards the end of my freshman year when I got this, so it would have been Stone Free. And the other one that also really kind of inspired me towards music, I got in that same set of 10 CDs, and it was this one. And I'm sure you're all familiar with this. I'm not going to go into this too much. It's kind of a greatest hits of Bob Marley, Legend. Great album. A song on here that really spoke to me was Redemption Song, and that song was pretty important at that time in my life. So now the actual album, those were more inspirational. The album that meant the most to me during high school was this one, Alice in Chains' Dirt. I think Lane Staley had one of the most amazing voices I've ever heard. I also think he was one of the best frontmen ever, in that there's very few artists, if any, that make you feel a song or feel their pain like Lane Staley was able to. He was just amazing. And this album, beginning to end, is just this is just a perfect album. I'm a huge Alice in Chains fan. A lot of people think Nirvana was really one of the most important bands from that Seattle scene. I think Alice in Chains was. A lot of people will argue that. Kim, you may argue that as well. I know you're a big Nirvana fan. Alice in Chains really changed. I think they were more a hard rock band than an alternative band. But most of alternative, even to this day, still takes some of their sound from what Alice in Chains did during this short period of time. I mean, a lot of people forget how short it was with this main lineup. I mean, it was basically 89 to 94, and they put out some of the most amazing albums that came out in decades. Just everything about these albums was just amazing. I would actually like to see these repressed too. I know they were just repressed, and this is one of them. This is one of the Music on Vinyl pressings. I would like to see them pressed by somebody here in the U.S. because I think music on vinyl here in the U.S. is a ripoff. Most of the stuff they put out is $35, $40, and I don't know if it's just the import fees that you pay, because from what I understand, everybody in England pays quite a bit less for the MOV stuff. But I would like to see one of the companies here, maybe Back to Black or Back on Black, re-release these. But this was definitely this was an album that really spoke to me during a time frame when I really needed that. So again, Alice in Chains, Dirt. And then the last question, coolest colored vinyl. I've got quite a bit of colored vinyl, but this one is definitely one of my favorites. When you mentioned that question, this was the first one that popped into my mind. And so the album is Loaded from the Velvet Underground. This was the from the last Record Store Day. It's a Rhino re-release, and they only did 3,000 in this run. But it's just a really cool pink purple splatter. Gives it that really cool tie-dye look. So that's probably one of my favorites. Crank this up. This album's amazing. And once again, this is Rev organ drum, or Reverend. It's actually, if you read on the site, it's Reverend organ drum. But this thing is amazing. Those are my responses, Kim. Again, good luck. Congratulations on 100 subs. For those of you guys that subscribe to me that aren't subscribed to Kim, please subscribe. Her link will be down below. Other than that, take care, VC, and we'll listen to this for a second on the way out. I don't know how you couldn't love this, man. This is just a killer out. Take care, VC.